Hi, welcome to the quiz. You can answer along on quizalto.com, all for free. The exact URL of this quiz will be in the notes down below. Let's get started, good luck. Which AWS service allows developers to extend their application to the edge of the 5G network? AWS CloudFormation, AWS Wavelength, AWS CloudTrail, AWS IAM. AWS Wavelength allows developers to extend their applications to the edge of the 5G network. What is the main advantage of deploying applications using AWS Wavelength compared to traditional cloud deployments? Lower cost, better security, higher scalability, reduced latency. Deploying applications using AWS Wavelength reduces latency by placing them closer to end users compared to traditional cloud deployments. What is the maximum latency target for applications deployed using AWS Wavelength? Double-digit milliseconds, single-digit milliseconds, seconds, triple-digit milliseconds. AWS Wavelength aims to achieve single-digit millisecond latency for applications deployed at the edge of the 5G network. What type of applications benefit the most from using AWS Wavelength? Real-time applications, static websites, archival storage, offline applications. Real-time applications such as gaming. Which AWS service enables developers to build ultra-low latency applications for 5G devices? Amazon VPC, Amazon RDS, Amazon Redshift, AWS Wavelength. AWS Wavelength enables developers to deploy their applications at the edge of the 5G network. What type of applications benefit from the reduced latency provided by AWS Wavelength? Real-time applications, batch processing applications, backup applications, archival storage applications. Real-time applications. What network technology does AWS Wavelength leverage to deliver ultra-low latency applications? 5G, 4G, Wi-Fi, Bluetooth. AWS Wavelength leverages the 5G network to deliver ultra-low latency applications by deploying infrastructure at the edge of the network. What is the minimum latency target for applications deployed using AWS Wavelength? Double-digit milliseconds, single-digit milliseconds, seconds, triple-digit milliseconds. AWS Wavelength aims to achieve a minimum latency target of single-digit milliseconds for applications deployed at the edge of the 5G network. What technology does AWS Wavelength leverage to deliver low-latency applications? Edge computing, virtualization, blockchain, cloud storage. AWS Wavelength leverages edge computing to deliver low-latency applications by placing compute resources closer to end users. What is the main benefit of using AWS Wavelength? Reduced latency for end users. Enhanced security. Cost optimization. Increased scalability. AWS Wavelength enables developers to deploy applications closer to end users. What service provides AWS Wavelength? Amazon S3, Amazon EC2, AWS Lambda, AWS Wavelength. AWS Wavelength is a service that allows you to build applications that serve end users with single-digit millisecond latency over the 5G network using AWS infrastructure. Which AWS service integrates directly with AWS Wavelength to enable developers to deploy their applications at the edge of the 5G network? Amazon EC2, Amazon Glacier, Amazon SQS, Amazon S3. Amazon EC2 instances can be provisioned in AWS Wavelength zones to deploy applications closer to end users. What is the main advantage of deploying applications using AWS Wavelength zones? Higher scalability. Reduced latency. Lower cost. Enhanced security. Deploying applications using AWS Wavelength zones reduces latency by bringing them closer to end users. What is the primary advantage of deploying applications using AWS Wavelength? Reduced latency. Global scalability. Enhanced security. Cost savings. The primary advantage of deploying applications using AWS Wavelength is the reduced latency achieved by placing them closer to end users. Which AWS service provides infrastructure at the edge of the 5G network for ultra-low latency applications? Amazon Route 53, AWS Wavelength, Amazon S3, Amazon RDS. AWS Wavelength provides infrastructure at the edge of the 5G network to support applications with ultra-low latency requirements. What is the primary focus of AWS Wavelength? Database management. Edge computing for 5G networks. Network security. Machine learning. The primary focus of AWS Wavelength is edge computing for 5G networks. Which AWS service provides a seamless integration with AWS Wavelength for deploying ultra-low latency applications? Amazon SES, Amazon EBS, Amazon Elastic Lake, Amazon CloudFront. Amazon CloudFront provides seamless integration with AWS Wavelength for deploying ultra-low latency applications by caching content at edge locations. What characteristic of AWS Wavelength enables it to deliver applications with minimal delay? Availability zones. Data centers. Regions. Edge locations. AWS Wavelength leverages edge locations to deploy applications closer to end users. Which AWS offering provides infrastructure and services at the edge of the 5G network? AWS Wavelength, Amazon ECS, Amazon Aurora, Amazon VPC. AWS Wavelength provides infrastructure and services at the edge of the 5G network. What technology does AWS Wavelength leverage to reduce latency for end users? Fog computing, edge computing, distributed computing, cloud computing. AWS Wavelength leverages edge computing to reduce latency for end users by deploying applications closer to their location. What is the primary focus of AWS Wavelength? Network routing, database management, application development, edge computing for 5G networks. AWS Wavelength's primary focus is on edge computing for 5G networks. What is the primary use case for AWS Wavelength? Big data analytics, high-performance computing, batch processing, ultra-low latency applications. AWS Wavelength is designed for applications that require ultra-low latency. Which AWS service provides the infrastructure for deploying applications closer to end users in 5G networks? Amazon SNS, Amazon CloudWatch, AWS Wavelength, Amazon Aurora. AWS Wavelength provides the necessary infrastructure for deploying applications closer to end users in 5G networks. What AWS service enables developers to extend their applications to the edge of the 5G network without modifying their existing code? AWS Wavelength, Amazon SQS, Amazon RDS, Amazon Route 53. AWS Wavelength enables developers to extend their applications to the edge of the 5G network seamlessly without the need for code modifications. What is the main reason for using AWS Wavelength zones for application deployment? Enhanced security, global availability, cost savings, reduced latency. The main reason for using AWS Wavelength zones for application deployment is to achieve reduced latency by placing applications closer to end users. And that's a wrap. Thanks to everyone who participated. Remember, you can answer along on quizalto.com, where you can keep track of your progress and find much more quizzes. We hope you had a fun and challenging time. Until next time. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up. Subscribe to the channel for more. Hit the bell icon to be notified as soon as we upload. Please leave a comment if you have any thoughts or suggestions, and, if you think this video is worth sharing with someone who could benefit from it, please forward a link to them. See you next time. Thanks for watching.